Hi, my name is Hansdeep Singh, and today I'll be giving you a demonstration of Lab 5, determination of the molecular weight of non-volatile solids. Prior to commencing this lab, let's take a look at a few of the safety notes. Lab coats and safety goggles must be worn at all times in the laboratory. Moreover, since we're dealing with a hot plate and hot material, heat-resistant gloves should also be used. In this lab, we'll be using the colligative properties of a solution to determine the molecular weight of a solid. Colligative properties are dependent solely on the concentration of the particles and not on their nature. The four main colligative properties are vapor pressure lowering, boiling point elevation, freezing point depression, and osmotic pressure. When a non-volatile solid is added to a solution, it leads to the lowering of the freezing point, thus depressing the freezing point. Similarly, when such a solid is added to a solution, the boiling point elevates. In this lab, we'll be using the relationship between the freezing point depression and the molality of the solution to determining the molecular weight of the unknown solid. Prior to commencing our experiment, let's take a look at the materials that will be used. Over here, we have a heat-resistant pair of gloves, we have the unknown solid, we have the 9-fluoronine, a 250 milliliter beaker and a 25 milliliter beaker, a spatula, a stirring rod, a stopwatch, an electronic thermometer, tongs, and our hot plate, which is with a stand. And we'll also be using a weighing machine and plastic weighing cups to measure out precise amounts of the 9-fluoronine and the unknown solid. To begin our experiment, we'll be preparing a hot water bath. And this will be done by placing some water in a 250 milliliter beaker and then heating it up on the hot plate. So first, we'll be filling our 250 milliliter beaker with some water. This much should be good. And then we'll be wearing our heat-resistant gloves before we use the hot plate. And then we'll be placing it on the hot plate as such before we turn on the hot plate. And since we're going to need the water to start boiling, we'll turn it up to the maximum temperature for now. After we have set the water to start boiling, we can start measuring how much amount of 9-fluoronine we'll be adding to our solution. So to do this, first we're going to be taking our 25 milliliter beaker and we'll be measuring the mass of that. So first we will be zeroing or tearing our analytical measure, placing the beaker, and now we'll be recording the mass of this beaker. Once we've recorded the mass of the beaker, we will now take this beaker out again and fill the beaker with up to about halfway with the 9-fluoronine solid. To do this, you can use a spatula so that you do not spill any. Please remember to wear lab gloves as well while doing this procedure. So we'll start filling 9-fluoronine into the beaker to about halfway. Once we have done so, we will then again remeasure the beaker with the 9-fluoronine on the analytical balance. We will now record this mass, and this will be able to tell us exactly how much 9-fluoronine is in there. Now once you have measured the mass of the 9-fluoronine in the beaker, you may now use it you can now melt it in this hot water bath that we have created. Once you see that the water has started to boil or has started to really heat up on the hot plate, we're going to place it on these clamps over here, and then we're going to submerge this beaker into this water bath such that we can melt this 9-fluorine. To do that, we're first going to wear heat-resistant gloves because the air around this hot plate is quite hot and warm, and we don't want any burns. So then we'll take this beaker over here and we'll clamp it onto these clamps. Now we want as much of the beaker to be below the clamps as possible. We're going to use the screws to tighten it up, just like this. Now once the beaker is secured by the clamps, we're going to turn it such that the beaker is right above the hot water, as you can see over here. And then we're going to use these screws over here to lower this clamp such that we have the 9-fluorine beaker right into the hot water beaker. Now a tip to be able to heat this 9-fluorine in the beaker as quickly as possible and to be able to melt it as quickly as possible, please try to ensure that you have as much of this beaker, the small beaker, the 25 milliliter beaker, submerged into the hot water in the water bath. While that is happening, you want to take your stir rod and you want to gently just keep stirring the 9-fluorine to aid its melting. And once you see that it has started to melt, you can place the electronic thermometer that you have into this 25 milliliter beaker, and you want about 90 to 95 degrees Celsius of temperature for the 9-fluorine. Now we see that it has started to melt, so we're going to be turning on our thermometer and we'll just simply place it into the 25 milliliter beaker. What's more is we can start stirring it further. Once most of the 9-fluorine has melted, wait for the temperature to go to between 90 to 95 degrees Celsius before going on to the next steps. Now once we see that the temperature of the 9-fluorine in the hot water bath has reached about 90 to 95 degrees Celsius, we can quickly remove the thermometer, and we must now take the 25 milliliter out of the hot water bath. We do this again by opening the clamps, and we want to now place the beaker away from underneath the hot surface. And now we're going to quickly take our thermometer again, and we're going to keep continuing to stir this. While we're stirring this, we're going to use our stopwatch to measure the temperature and record the temperature every 15 seconds while stirring it. We also want to be careful to note down where we think crystallization has started. This can be a very tedious process. So again, we keep stirring it, and every 15 seconds we'll be noting down the temperature of the 9-fluorine. Now once crystallization has ended, keep continuing this process and record the data every 15 seconds for the temperature for an extra 3 minutes. We see that crystallization has begun, as we can see the crystals forming on the downside. Now once you have taken the temperature readings every 15 seconds and the 9-fluorine has solidified, we're now going to repeat this process again by simply putting the solidified 9-fluorine in the beaker in the hot water bath once again. And we're going to wait for it to melt. And we're going to then take, once it has melted to a temperature again of 90 to 95 degrees Celsius, we'll then be removing the 9-fluorine out of the water bath and then again taking temperature readings every 15 seconds while stirring it with the thermometer. Now once you have repeated the step of reheating the 9-fluoronine and then recooling it while measuring the temperature while it freezes, now we're going to measure about 0.5 grams of the unknown solid. To do this, again, we're going to use our analytical balance. So first we'll take our weighing boat, empty, and we're going to put it in the analytical balance, and we're going to zero it. Once it is zeroed, we can now put approximately 0.5 grams of the unknown solid into the weighing boat. Now once we have measured the exact mass of the unknown solid that will be added to our 9-fluoronine, we're going to take our solidified 9-fluoronine in this 25 milliliter beaker that there is, and once again we're going to put it in our hot water bath such that we can melt it. Once it has melted, we will then be placing the unknown solid, the measured unknown solid, into this melted 9-fluoronine solution. Now you may also notice that while you're heating and reheating the 9-fluoronine, that a lot of the water in the water bath keeps evaporating, and the water level actually decreases to below the beaker, the 25 milliliter beaker height. With this makes the process of melting the 9-fluoronine very, very slow. So to be able to refill this hot beaker or the water bath, we can simply take another beaker with water in it, and carefully we can top up the water bath with some water from the side, such that the entire of the 25 milliliter beakers remain submerged in the hot water bath, and this will accelerate the melting process of the 9-fluoronine. So after you see that your 9-fluoronine has melted while you're stirring it, you can now take the unknown solid that you measured the mass of on the analytical balance, and you can add it into the 25 milliliter beaker containing the 9-fluoronine. Now for this step, be careful that you do not burn yourself, so you want to be wearing your heat resistant gloves again, and you want to be careful that all of the unknown solid that you measured goes into the 25 milliliter beaker. So be careful in the step. Once you have added the unknown solid to the 9-fluoronine solution, continue stirring and heating the 25 milliliter beaker in the water bath. And now you want to continue heating this solution to about 10 degrees higher than the melting point that you observed of just the 9-fluoronine. You want to be keeping on stirring it well, such that all the unknown solid is dissolved well. Now once you notice that the solution has heated well and all the unknown solid has dissolved, you can now take the 25 milliliter beaker out of the water bath, just like as before. And once again, we will be stirring the solution while also recording the temperature readings every 15 seconds using the stopwatch. It should be noted that in this case, the temperature will not remain constant as the mixture freezes. And continue to take the measurements every 15 seconds for 3 minutes after the crystallization has ended. Now once you have recorded the data every 15 seconds for the temperature and the solution of the 9-fluoronine and the unknown solid has crystallized fully, you can then repeat this whole process of melting the 9-fluoronine with the unknown solid once again into the hot water bath and then recooling it. So once again, we'll just be loosening the clamps, lowering the 25 milliliter beaker into the hot water bath. And if you notice that once again your water level in the hot water bath has decreased, you can carefully top it up on the side on the 250 milliliter beaker, making sure none of the water goes into the 25 milliliter beaker to ensure that the hot water bath is full. And once again, you must heat the 9-fluoronine and unknown solid such that it melts again, and then you will repeat the process of measuring the temperature every 15 seconds to get a second set of data. Once you're done recording your second set of data for the temperature every 15 seconds while the solution of 9-fluoronine and unknown solid is crystallizing, you can then turn off your hot plate, and you can also dispose of the water in the hot water bath. Be sure to wear your heat resistant gloves, as the hot plate and the beaker are going to be very hot. Finally, you can also take a paper towel and clean the tip of the temperature probe that you used to get rid of any solution that's stuck to it. And then finally you should also dispose of the 9-fluoronine and unknown solid into the specified disposal container.